Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. Look, he's live. He's live and he's tan. How you feeling there, Landis? You're back from a little vacay, refreshed.
Yeah, feel recharged. Yeah, feeling good. Glad to be back.
Yeah. We really, I'm glad. I think people probably noticed the last couple shows we did record ahead because we were wearing like the same clothes every show. But I just don't want to do that to people. I don't want to have people say, God, I just love Bill Landis, and then have them get nothing but this, nothing but swords and hats. And so I'm glad we did that, but it's good to have you back live. We're going to dive with no showdown today. We have these KOTN showdowns sprinkled out through the entire offseason, and we're going to get back to them next week. But we're not doing one today. We've done 3 so far. We have some great ones planned ahead. We'll hit all 28 of our northern teams. But today, this came up. It's something I think that we've discussed. It's something that came up when Connor O'Gara and I were talking in a recent show. And it is a depth versus elite conversation for conferences. And so we're going to have that discussion about the Big Ten and SEC today. Would you rather be top heavy? Would you rather have great depth? And what have these conferences had in the playoff era? And then to check that, we're going to go head to head 1 through 16. Sorry to Purdue and Northwestern. The SEC doesn't have 18 teams, so we just cut off Northwestern and Purdue from the bottom. We will get back to Northwestern and Purdue fans. I don't want you to feel left out, but we weren't going to just make SEC teams up to compare to the Boilermakers and Wildcats. We're going to go 1 through 16 just to give us a brush for this year. So we'll see if we can do it. You and I have had some problems lately on just brushing on things because we like to dive in. Do we not? God, we like to get in there.
Yes.
Don't we? Oh,
yes. Yeah.
Can't help it. But we're just going to go through and be like, okay, who would you rather be this year? This team or this team? This team or this team? To get a sense of elite versus depth for the SEC and Big Ten. And also, it's not why we're doing this, because we don't do anything here based on what other people do. But I have noticed that, I guess Urban Meyer said that the Big Ten has passed the SEC or whatever. And again, we're at that point where welcome, but also stay off our corner. Right.
Yeah.
And I like when people come around to it, but I also sort of prefer it when we're the only people pointing it out.
Yeah, I also saw, this is not germane, I guess, to this topic. Our friends Andy and Ari were like, wait, Utah might be good this year? It's like, yeah, bro.
No.
We've been talking about it for 2 months. Yeah, Urban Meyer did say, yeah, right. He said the Big Ten has passed the SEC, but he said specifically at the top. I think if you asked him about the depth, he might still lean toward the SEC. So it wasn't like all the top to bottom. He thought that the Big Ten had passed the SEC.
Okay. So let's have this depth versus, and then we're going to do Whatcha at the end. And I assume you have all kinds of island things that you ate, that you thought, and that maybe you even watched. Is it a full island Bill Whatcha this week?
It's all vacation related. The watching so much is not island related. No.
Okay. And I want to say this off the top too. Our plan is not to have a live show on Monday, because it is Memorial Day. It is an opportunity maybe to go out to a picnic, maybe to do something with your family and friends, maybe to honor the heroes of our country. And so we're not going to do a live show, but we want to give you a little something. So what I'm pretty sure we're going to do this. We'll do sort of an Ask KOTN mailbag show. It'll just be pre-recorded and it will drop Monday. So this is a reminder. Send in your questions. Send in your comments. We got great feedback from a lot of people about noon games, about primetime games, that idea, particularly for Ohio State fans, but for all fan bases. When do you want games to be? Do you like primetime games? Do you think noon games are kind of, do you like noon games? I understand people who like noon games. We want feedback on that, but we also just want anything that you think we can do to make the show better, things you'd like to see us try that we don't do, things you want to see have us do more, have us do less, and then also any questions about college football. So we'll do that in an Ask KOTN mailbag show that'll drop Monday, just not live. Back live on Wednesday next week, doing the regular thing. The Big Ten was deeper than the SEC during the 4-team playoff, and nobody knew it. Did you know it?
I don't think I bothered. No, I didn't bother to seek it out because that's not how we really talked about things. We were more concerned with the top.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
Let me drop some numbers on you. This is just a little subset. In the 4 seasons between 2015 and 2018, 2015, 16, 17, 18, the SEC got 5 teams in the playoff. So they got 1 every year and 2 in 1 year. And the Big Ten got 2. So those are 2 years where the Big Ten champ didn't make the 4-team playoff. Remember those days? Do you remember those days, 4-team truthers? You want to go back to that? Hey, you won the Big Ten. By the way, the SEC and the Big Ten are a Big 2 now. Everybody assumes that. Oh, yeah, it's always been that way. We just assume it now. We didn't stop and note it. Remember when the Big Ten champ wouldn't make the playoff? God bless America. What days those were. Who wants to go back? Do you want to go back? You truthers? Yeah. Who wants that world again? You don't want it, do you?
No, thank you. Yeah.
2015, 2018. Teams in the 4-team playoff. SEC 5, Big Ten 2. That same period, the number of total teams in the top 10 of the year-end playoff rankings, the SEC had 8 in those 4 years. So an average of 2 a year. The Big Ten had 11. The Big Ten had 11, an average of almost 3 a year. And it didn't matter because nobody cared. And all that did was get to New Year's 6 games, and it didn't get you into the playoff. And nobody cared about depth. And I challenge anybody. To say, yeah, I knew that. Yeah. Did you? Of course. I knew that like Wisconsin and Michigan State and Iowa and a bunch of those teams in the Big Ten, like just below the playoff level, I knew they were kicking butt, being the 8th best team in the country and getting all kinds of respect for the Big Ten. Nobody cared and nobody knew it because back then, do we agree that we were in an era for 10 years where all that mattered was being elite at the top? And when it came to being elite at the top, thanks to Nick Saban, nobody did it better than the SEC and nobody was having a depth conversation.
No, well, I think all anybody cared about was who made the playoff, right? But the field was so small that it didn't invite the depth into the conversation. If it did, I don't think the perception of the sport would be what it was prior to like the last 2 years of the North winning the national championship. So no, I don't like. Of course, people knew like Michigan State was good and Wisconsin was good. Iowa was good. What they knew mostly of those teams is they would go to the Big Ten championship game and then not win, as provided Ohio State was in the championship that year. But I don't know that the Big Ten ever got much credit for that. And frankly, I mean, I guess it should have. But the structure of the postseason being what it was, like I don't know how much it actually mattered, right? So it's not. I don't know that the Big Ten was like getting short shrift necessarily, but if you look at it now, especially now that we're in the extended playoff world, and ask yourself, like, if that can sustain, then it suddenly puts the Big Ten in a very different picture compared to the SEC.
2015, the 4 best Big Ten teams, 3, 5, 7, and 13 in the final playoff rankings. The best SEC teams, 2, 12, 19, 20. The second best SEC team in 2015 was ranked 12th in the final playoff rankings. 2016, the top Big Ten teams, 3, 5, 6, 8. The top SEC teams in 2016, 1, 14, 17, 20. The Big Ten had 4 of the top 8. The Big Ten had 4 of the top 8. The second best SEC team was 14th. And nobody cared. No, Christopher P's in here saying, I never thought about it. Nobody cared. Okay. And I agree. But now, guess what we do? Because Connor O'Gara's in here saying, like, 7 SEC teams in the top 25 last year. Now, all of a sudden, we care. And what I am super curious about and why this discussion matters is if, God dang it, are we really going to be in a spot when the SEC, with the greatest coach of all time, was super top heavy? It created a perception that the SEC was better than everybody. The depth conversation didn't exist. And now, as we get to a depth conversation and the SEC has lost the guy at the top Now, all of a sudden, depth matters. And now, all of a sudden, we want to talk about Ole Miss and South Carolina and Alabama and all these SEC teams. They didn't get in the 12-team playoff, but if we go to 16, they'll get in there. The SEC wants 7 bids. And now the depth matters. And is it going to happen that the shift of the sport, the structure of the sport, is going to follow? Coincidentally, this is not on a Greg Sankey spreadsheet. Hey, guys, you listen, hey, so we got the greatest coach of all time, so we're going to let him prop us up. Actually, that guy might have it on a spreadsheet. We're going to let the greatest coach of all time prop us up while the rest of the league is a bunch of frauds. And then right when he retires, we're going to say depth matters, right? And we're really going to hit this whole Tennessee thing pretty hard. Everybody in on that? Lane, you got it? Good. You good with that, Lane? Yeah, I'm good. Brian, everybody, we're good? Josh? Yeah, we're good to go. Meanwhile, Mark D'Antonio and Brett Bielema and Kirk Ferentz are just plugging along with the 8th best team in the country for 5 straight years, and nobody cared. And now the Big Ten's like, hey, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa, you guys ready for this depth thing? And they're like, could you go to somebody else? Could you check with Maryland? Could they maybe do something? No, we're checking back with you. Is this what has happened?
It is what's happened. Yeah. I don't know. I now that has happened and the conversation has shifted, I do wonder how the Big Ten feels about itself. Because if we were having this, clearly, if we were having this conversation 6 years ago, it'd feel great. But a lot of the teams that would make you feel great are good. I think, aren't that good? Some of them have fallen off a little bit. Yes, the conversation has changed. I wonder about the Big Ten's standing relative to what it was in 2017.
John checking in. Sankey doesn't need to push that agenda when he has honks out there in the media doing it for him. God,
you do hear it a lot, though, right? Wasn't there I felt like there was a lot of pride in the fact that the Big Ten had, or not the Big Ten, the SEC had a couple of 9-3 teams that were just on the cusp of making the playoff. Could you imagine if all those SEC teams got in the playoff? Nope, didn't have to because they didn't.
Hey, bro, who's your 6th best team? Huh? Come on. Who's your 6th best team? Let's go. What is happening? Every time I don't question our existence, Bill, that often. I love this show. I love this audience. I get a knot in my stomach when the show starts every day because I'm nervous and I'm excited and I care about it. And I think we have a lot of interesting things to talk about. But if I ever did question our existence, there's enough things like this that pop up that just make you get your swords out, right? Mm-hmm. We need it. This needs to be addressed, doesn't it? Okay. I did this. Let's talk about it this way, and then we're going to go head to head. I made some tiers. There's plenty of ways to make tiers. My Twitter avatar is me drinking a Dunkin' Donuts coffee mug that I wrote SEC tiers on the side of it. So I like to consume SEC tiers, and then I like to build SEC tiers, right? I like consuming them more, but I also like building them. I can feel it in my body. Oh, it's going to be one of those days. I apologize in advance. Tier 1. This is what I did. I looked at the first 11 years of the college football playoff. How many times a team finished in the top 16? This is anticipating a world maybe where we get to a 16-team playoff. Of course, there would be a G5 team in there, so it wouldn't just be the top 16. But you're trying to create thresholds. It's like, are you good enough to be in the conversation for what the new world may be? Right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I did top 16. And so then I created the tiers. I created 4 tiers for both the SEC and Big Ten based on how often in the 11 years of the playoff system so far did you finish in the top 16 at the end of the year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Tier 1. This is if you finished in the top 10 at least 7 of 11 years. It's the top 16, at least 7 of 11 years. 4 teams in the Big Ten. And it's the current, of course, you were in different conferences possibly before. This is about where you are right now. Ohio State made it 11 out of 11 years. Michigan, Penn State, and Oregon, 7 each. They're tier 1 for the Big Ten. Tier 1 for the SEC is Alabama, 10 of 11, Georgia, 9, Oklahoma, 8. When we think about this tier 1, what they have been, what they are, How do we feel about this? Who has a better tier one in the history of the playoff when you think about these consistently relevant teams?
I mean, it's hard to say that it's not the SEC, right? Like based on their history, because they have the national championships.
What show are you?
Is it not?
Well, but I guess so. So
moving forward, I think it's a different conversation. But like tip of the cap to past success, I suppose.
Yeah, this is a difficult conversation. This is both the past and the future. Here's the one thing I'm kind of asking is, let me ask this. Ohio State has been a tier one team. Are they still a tier one team?
Yes.
Michigan has been a tier one team. Are they still a tier one team?
More than likely. Yeah, probably.
Cue NCAA discussion.
Yeah.
That only makes people mad. In 3, 2. Penn State has been a tier one team, which maybe people don't realize. Are they still a tier one team? And will they be?
Yes.
Oregon has been a tier one team. Will they continue to be?
Yes.
Georgia has been and will be. No doubt about that. Alabama. Where are we on Bama? You know where I am. I was yelling at Connor O'Gara that Kalen DeBoer is going to fail and go back to South Dakota State. Can you imagine? I would write you. That's your book. That's your book. I don't know where South Dakota State University is. That's where he was, right? That's where his roots are.
It's in South Dakota. Yeah.
He leaves Alabama and then goes to South. Mike, where is South? Is he South Dakota State? I thought Mike was jumping in for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
Sioux Falls.
It's South Dakota State is in Brookings, South Dakota.
Brookings. Okay.
He was at Sioux Falls. No, he was at Sioux Falls.
Oh, he was in Sioux Falls. All right. I apologize to our South Dakota audience for not knowing the geography of South Dakota better. Bottom line, failed Alabama coach goes back to South Dakota and builds a monster. You writing that book or not?
I'd write that book. Yeah. I've never been to South Dakota. It'd be an excuse to go there. So that'd be nice. Yeah.
Do you think Alabama is definitively going to stay in tier one?
No, I don't. I think we might see like one last gasp of the roster that Nick Saban gave to Kalen DeBoer this year. But long term, no. I'm not convinced that Alabama stays on this tier.
He's on Helfrich watch, right? Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah.
I think Helfrich made the national title game in his second year after taking over for Chip, and then it was for Chip Kelly at Oregon, and then it was poof. It was gone. Yeah. Helfrich watch. We'll make that a thing. Oklahoma. Remember when they were in tier one? They in tier one right now?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
So here's my thing about tier one. I think you have 3 Big Ten teams that are definitively have been there and will remain there in Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. And then if Michigan is not torn apart by the NCAA, we have to check. It's a similar conversation. Sharon Moore taking over for Jim Harbaugh compared to Kalen DeBoer taking over for Nick Saban. So we can't be like, I can't be dismissive of Alabama and be totally locked in on Michigan. But Alabama is like this was the first or second team for the SEC. And now they're in the same place that Michigan is when I think you have 3 teams sort of like more definitively locked in. So anyway, I like the tier one for the Big Ten right now better than I like the SEC tier one.
Yeah, if you're factoring in future, absolutely. I feel great about Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. Like no question about it.
I think this conversation is going to be based on the past. How do you feel about the future?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and then we'll get head to head, which is the present.
Yeah.
Tier 2. There's one team from each conference in tier 2 because it went from a gap of Michigan, Penn State, Oregon had made it 7 times. And then there's nobody who made it 6 in either conference. So this is the teams that made it 5 times in 11 years who were in the top 16 5 times in 11 years. Washington for the Big Ten, Ole Miss for the SEC. Who are you taking going forward? And and by the way, whose 5 mattered more? Talking about maybe
Washington's 5 mattered more. Yeah. Definitely.
This is the most irrelevant 5. If we're saying, hey, remember when Iowa, Michigan State, and Wisconsin were good and nobody cared? Ole Miss falls squarely in the remember when Ole Miss was kind of good and nobody cared. So we just did a 45-minute segment comparing Washington and Nebraska. We kind of liked Washington, kind of liking the cut of Jed Fish's jib more and more. You get a look at that guy.
Yep.
And I don't know how Ole Miss is going to elevate. We've already seen Washington elevate. And so I don't know that Ole Miss is going to fall off a cliff, but I don't know how Ole Miss is ever going to get out of here.
I think that's probably the good way to put it. I don't see Ole Miss as a team that can elevate. Like, I have and will continue to give Lane Kiffin like a nod for his consistency at Ole Miss. Like, I know he's like a punchline and a meme and he welcomes it, but he wins a lot of football games at a place that doesn't historically do that. But I don't know that there's a clear pathway to be something more than this consistently. Whereas like Washington, I think has already shown an ability to do that.
Okay. So I'm taking tier 1 for the Big Ten. I'm taking tier 2 for the Big Ten too.
I would take tier 2 for the Big Ten as well.
Okay. Tier 3. This is if you had between 2 and 4 appearances in the top 16 of the final college football playoff rankings for the 11 years of the college football playoff so far. Big Ten, Michigan State and Iowa 4, Wisconsin, USC 3, Northwestern, Indiana 2. SEC, Texas, LSU, Florida, Auburn 3, Missouri, Tennessee 2. So this gets interesting because this is sort of the conversation to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are 5 teams who I think will determine the true strength of the Big Ten in the next 5 years. And I think those 5 teams are Michigan in tier 1, if they can remain who they have been and not fall off because of a coaching change or anything else that happens. And then Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, USC. Because we have seen what they can be, I do not think it is impossible for them to be that again. Michigan State, new coach. Wisconsin, new coach. USC, totally a mess. Iowa doing the same thing, but also can they evolve a little bit in the new world? And this is just so... Michigan State and Wisconsin are afterthoughts in the Big Ten right now. They're currently afterthoughts with established winners as head coaches and recent pasts that really mattered. And that makes them super interesting and important to me in shaping what we think of this conference.
Yeah, I think that's right. I like they're all for like different reasons, right? There's a like an existential conversation with Iowa and Wisconsin, and I suppose Northwestern like no longer being in the Big Ten West. Like the restructure of the Big Ten is freeing for the teams that were in the East, so because they don't have to play Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan anymore. But it is a little more daunting, I think, for the teams that were in the West, which I guess raises questions about, you know, can Iowa and Wisconsin be regularly relied upon to win 9, 10, 11 games like they were for a pretty long time in that system or in that setup. But I think you're right about that group of teams being the ones that determine it. Because what it would take for Ohio State, Penn State, like Oregon to fall off would be catastrophic. So it's not even worth entertaining. But you're talking about the middle here, the depth, the teams that are going to get like those, either like the last automatic qualifier once we get into that world, or like the at-large bids. Like that's this group of teams. So, and I don't know, like frankly, if I feel great about where any of them are, if I'm being honest. I guess besides Indiana, I think is in a pretty good spot, but the rest of that Big Ten group, I think, is in a little bit of a weird spot.
When we are having edge of the playoff conversations about South Carolina and Ole Miss and Alabama, like we were with the SEC last year, these are the teams that have to be in that conversation for the Big Ten. Because the thing that happened last year with the Big Ten is that there was no conversation. The only conversation was, will the committee respect Indiana enough to put them in? But there were 3 that were in for sure. There was an Indiana conversation, and there really wasn't anybody else. Illinois was kind of there, but was never talked about in the same way that the 3-loss SEC teams were. And there was a constant churn and discussion about the SEC. I think there can be that churn and discussion for the Big Ten if a couple of these teams rise up. Do you think that churn and discussion matters? Because I felt like it was a very large talking point, perhaps ESPN fueled, perhaps. My God, what am I saying perhaps for? They'd get to the third quarter of a Georgia game and be like, man, South Carolina should be in the playoffs, shouldn't they? Oh, my God. Okay. I'm just going to wear it the rest of the show. I can't do a show like this. Does it matter if the Big Ten's part of that churn? If they are saying, hey, 8-2 Michigan State, they're pretty good. Watch out for this. They had this good win. Does that conversation matter in the sport? The bottom of the playoff discussion.
Yeah, I think it does.
I
think it does, and it will the extent to which it does will continue to increase, right? I don't know that like everyone's there yet. Like we're still new to this expanded playoff world. And having like the kind of conversations that you have about like the NCAA basketball tournament, right? Where it's like, oh, the Big Ten got this many teams, ACC got this many teams to show the conference strength or whatever. Like we never really had a reason to think about that with college football. And now we do. And like, I get like there are fan bases who only care about their team winning a national championship. I'm not saying that everyone will start to think that way, but I think generally that conversation that you're talking about will continue to become more important as we try to figure out where the strength in college football lies.
So the team that sticks out here is Texas with 3 top 16 finishes in the last 11 years. And probably what has happened and is happening is just that Texas is replacing Oklahoma in tier 1 for the SEC. And it's a clean swap. Is that a easy way to think about this?
Yeah. Which I'm sure both those fan bases love to hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, Oklahoma, don't worry that you're irrelevant. Texas has your back. Isn't that great? Everybody's happy. And the thing that's interesting here to me is, again, the perception of LSU and Florida primarily, and even like, oh, Tennessee, here comes Tennessee. Tennessee's finished in the top 16 of the playoff rankings in the playoff era as often as Northwestern. Right. So like that's what we're talking about here. So if it's like, whoa, ho, 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 Phil Fulmer, then the Nico conversation is like you get Tennessee back in the spotlight. Oh, a proud program. If Northwestern's quarterback transferred and threw a hissy fit about NIL and left for UCLA, would people be doing shows about it for 2 weeks? That's where we are here. No. Based on recent history, Tennessee's Northwestern. And I just sometimes like to remind people of that. Again, this educated, dedicated, loyal Northern audience knows in their heart and in their soul, spread the word to your friends and family. Tennessee is Northwestern.
If this show gets in front of the right people, it could be our most viewed show ever.
God. This is a good encapsulation. If you're wondering about us, you're getting a lot of it today. So the thing I think here, I think we just have to, LSU, we know this. They're an up and a down and an up and a down. And when they're up, they might win the national championship. Connor O'Gara and I on this show made an LSU bet because he said he thought LSU was going to win the SEC. And I said, I'll just let you say makes the SEC title game. I did not realize in that moment, and he is now officially out there saying it, he has LSU winning the national championship. So again, LSU winning the national championship, that's like if we were on here saying we think Wisconsin's going to win the national championship because LSU is Wisconsin. Just so we all realize that LSU is Wisconsin. Their peaks are super high, but they are completely inconsistent. So the thing I want to ask about here, and this is odd because on this show, we do not count USC and UCLA as part of the North, but when we are having a perception conversation about conferences, which is what everybody else does, we have to talk about USC. Texas is a tier 3 team by my metric here. They're not a tier 3 team right now, program.
Correct.
But when you see what Texas has done the last few years with Steve Sarkisian and what it means to Texas's new conference, Texas is already propping up the SEC. Could we be 2 years away from USC doing the same thing for the Big Ten?
Who's USC's coach? I don't know.
Thumper. Bambi's out, and they've gone to Rose Petal, the skunk. What's the skunk's name? Flower. Thumper.
Yeah. I don't think so. I'm not there with USC. I think they're making Bill. I don't know if you've been paying attention on social media, but they're making a lot of recruiting graphics, and recruiting graphics equal wins. Yep. Have we changed the rules where classes sign in May now, or do we have to wait until December to see if all those guys stay in the class?
we are at peak USC right now because, 9 more of their guys are going to decommit. Like, man, they had a good spring. They had a good. I don't think it's impossible, but it's so interesting to me that Texas, the SEC needs Texas so much right now. And of course, we've already had the conversation. Oregon has just taken what USC has been. And Oregon is really helping the Big Ten right now. But I don't think the Big Ten needs Oregon as much as the SEC needs Texas. But also consider what USC has been in the modern history of college football. If that hits, holy moly, Urban Meyer won't know what to do with himself. He'll be running laps.
It'd be propulsive. No, yeah.
Propulsive.
It would absolutely be propulsive for the Big Ten, but I don't think the Big Ten needs it.
The
Big Ten added USC.
What a bonus.
Yeah, it would be a bonus. Like, it doesn't. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan, barring an NCAA hammer, I guess, I think are quite strong to lead the Big Ten. They don't need USC the same way. It's funny, like when Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC, I don't think I was alone in thinking, like, be careful what you ask for. And then here we are. It's like Texas is the best program in the SEC. It's like, okay, how did that happen?
They'd be dead without them. Christopher P is in here, by the way, saying that LSU is better than Wisconsin. I'm not sure I can stand for that, Christopher. We know. Sometimes you just got to say it, right?
Yeah.
But LSU is such an interesting team to analyze because their highs are so high, and then they fall off a cliff and they fire their coach. Like, there is no consistency there. And they are either in the mix for a national title or totally out of the conversation. They're either winning a national title or out of the conversation. Yes. So, I mean, they're a very rare team in that way. All right.
But there is not a compelling question in there of what you'd rather be, right? The team that can spike to win 3 national titles in whatever it was, like 14 years, or the team that's like respectfully consistent, but like never going to win a national title.
In our LSU Wisconsin conversation.
Yes.
I mean, get back to me in 2016, get back to me 9 years ago. And I don't know, like between the Les Miles and Ed Orgeron national titles between 2007 and 2019, if you hit in there when Wisconsin was just like, yeah, we're 12-1 again. I don't know what to tell you. We're 12-1. We're in the Big Ten title game again. Okay.
Yeah.
I could have made a Wisconsin case for you because you didn't know when Coach O was getting there, you didn't know for sure Les was leaking a little bit. And then you didn't know for sure that LSU was going to get back to that peak. And Wisconsin was pretty darn consistently a top 10, top 12 program. So I think if you asked me that question in 2016, I would say I'd rather be Wisconsin. I don't know when the next LSU peak's going to come. But I know Wisconsin's good every year. We're currently having a conversation right now where some people are picking LSU to win the national title, and we're not sure Wisconsin's going to be better than 3-9. So it's hard to have it today.
Sure.
But in 2017, I think we would have had a very interesting conversation. And I think I could have come out saying Badgers.
I think you could have, right? Yeah, because it's not like, Wisconsin wasn't like 9-3 good. Wisconsin was not losing the regular season kind of good, or only dropping 1 game. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think you could, but I would understand anyone who says like, no, give me the opportunity to rise and win a national title.
And that's a wonderful philosophical conversation, because I've said for 20 years, I just think it's great to have your team in the mix and to have your in November for you to think in your heart and know in your mind that your team could win it all, that your team matters, that other people are talking about your team. You don't know what's going to happen, but the last 6 weeks of a college football season, when your team matters, my gosh, it makes you feel alive. And of course, everybody wants to win a national title, but I think it's very difficult for fan bases who are used to success when your team is 2-3. You're like, okay, well, I guess it's not going to happen this year. How much am I even really locked in at the end of the year? So I have often made cases that I'd rather follow a team that is consistently in the mix, even if they don't get over the top, than a team that wins a national title and then 3 out of the next 4 years nobody cares about. So, but I understand you're on the other side of that argument for sure. Give me titles, give me crowns.
Not for sure. But I probably lean that way. I probably lean the way of give me the team that can max out and win it all.
Yeah.
Even if you take the valleys with that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the last tier is tier 4. This is teams who
we didn't choose tier 3. Who'd you rather?
It's because I think it's probably the SEC.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wanted to skip it. But the thing I want people to be alert to is, what if Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, and USC get it back? What that would mean for this entire conversation. And that I do think it's important. I think it might be the most important takeaway of the big picture of this. If we are determining that not all of a sudden, but in the new expanded playoff, depth matters, I think we are agreeing on that, right? It didn't matter before. It does matter now. That's a statement, a KOTN statement. Yes, we can put that out in a press release. Michael, send it out. In a situation where depth matters more than ever before, these teams really matter to the Big Ten's depth conversation. So if you care about the Big Ten, if you care about Northern football, I think it's worth keeping an eye on whether Michigan State, Iowa, Wisconsin, and USC can kind of do their thing.
I think that's right. But in the moment, if you're comparing these two tiers, I think you have to give it to the SEC.
I give it to the SEC, but again, get back to me in 2017, and I'll give you Brett Bielema, Kirk Ferentz, Mark D'Antonio. Let's go. Are you kidding me? Let's go. Tier 4. This is 0 or 1. Everybody in the Big Ten, 0. Nebraska, Minnesota, Illinois, Rutgers, Maryland, Purdue, UCLA never finished in the top 16 of the first 11 years of the playoff rankings. For the SEC, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Texas A&M, and South Carolina each did it once. Vanderbilt and Arkansas, 0. Nebraska and Illinois are super interesting to me here. Illinois specifically, contract extension for Brett Bielema. It feels real, feels like maybe a peak coming this year, but then also, is that a peak that's going to include a drop-off, or is it a peak that establishes a new plateau for Illinois football? And what if Nebraska ever comes back? Super interesting. And then when I look at these SEC teams, Lenora Sellers, I get it. People are going to have 95-minute shows about Lenora Sellers once a week until the season starts, and he's probably going to have a very good season for South Carolina. But I think the only SEC team that has any kind of percolating potential along the lines of Illinois or Nebraska is Texas A&M, and they usually can't get out of their own way. So tier 4, I like the Big Ten.
Yeah, because I would even throw Minnesota into the mix too for the Big Ten. I think Minnesota has some potential. There's like a developmental program that like you get in the conversation with like, well, the schedule would have to break for certain years, but I think Minnesota has that possibility. I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right about the SEC group. Texas A&M and South Carolina are like the only ones where like I can kind of see it, and even between those two, when you think about like their history of talent acquisition, Texas A&M stands apart. So it feels odd to give it to a big group of Big Ten teams that all have zeros next to their name.
Yeah,
but I think I would lean Big Ten a little bit there too.
Yeah.
And like, maybe foolishly embracing the idea of Nebraska getting it back, but I can see it.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just trying to lay a foundation, right, for this depth conversation. I do think it's a different way to look at the sport. I do think the Big Ten's depth, we're working on a project. Here's the thing. We are working on a project that is not this daily show that you and I are spending kind of a lot of time on right now. And one of the things that we are realizing through this project is that when it comes to the Big Ten and Northern football, there were some very stark realities about the recent history and where some of those shortcomings were. But the perception was often worse than the reality. That it was like, well, I guess the SEC owns college football. It's like, yeah, who can dispute that? But actually, like, there's some stuff there that nobody talked about or nobody realized. And this, to me, is a little bit of an example of that. That the Big Ten maybe had better depth in this era than we ever realized because it didn't matter. And now here we are when it matters. And all people want to do is talk about the SEC's depth. And it's like, okay, I get it. 7 of the top 25 last year. But also, let's not pretend that the Big Ten isn't capable of this, because it has been capable, and it's been happening for 10 years, but nobody cared. That's what this discussion is to me.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I don't know. You open the show with like, well, doesn't matter. Would you rather be top heavy, or would you rather be able to like kind of like boast your depth? And I don't actually know that there's a clear answer to that. there's definitely a moving of the goalposts happening with SEC conversations about what is more important, but I don't know that they're 100% right either. But it does feel like I think you could certainly make the argument. I don't know that we would, but like as the sport has changed and depth probably matters more, that the SEC does seem to be positioned a little better with like its middle than the Big Ten. But the Big Ten is, I think, unquestionably better positioned with its top than the SEC is.
Which, at least if that is, so I do think I agree exactly with that. That's the nut graph of this show. The Big Ten right now better positioned at the top. The SEC better positioned with depth. But I can see the Big Ten making up that ground. And let's make sure, as a sport, as national media, that we don't all of a sudden switch the conversation from only elite to only depth.
Yeah.
Right? On the way to talking about South Carolina.
Are you asking for nuance in sports conversations?
I'm going to punch a screen. My God. So anyway, like that's what we're saying. And we're trying to establish, I think, frameworks for these discussions, which we invite other people to use.
Did you see the comment from John? Are you saying the SEC is the Big Ten of the 2010s? Yes.
Please feel free. Here, anyone I hope that's on SportsCenter today. Breaking news. The SEC is the Big Ten of the 2010s. All right. See, I got called a honk on the other show, the show, because I said, Notre Dame was overrated without factual basis. And then I looked it up and I was like, actually, they're not that overrated. So we're all capable of honkitude.
Sure.
But you always need to check yourself if you're honking a little too hard. And so we're checking if people are honking too hard. All right. When we come back, we're going to go head to head. Head to head. Top 16 teams. Who's going to be better, SEC or Big Ten in 2025? Back with our fantastic audience here on Kings of the North. Send a comment, send a question, send a reaction, send how we can make this show better, what you want more of, what you want less of. Ask KOTN@gmail.com. The plan is to drop a pre-recorded show on Monday. That's an Ask KOTN mailbag. We'll do Whatcha at the end of the show. We have some comments about last week's Whatcha. I do want to work those in a little more often, have people reacting to the Whatchas of previous weeks and bringing those into Whatcha. Let's do a head-to-head showdown, 1 through 16. I mostly use the odds to win each conference in determining these matchups, Bill. Some of the odds were tied, so then I sort of tried to make cool matchups. But I will say at the top, our first matchup, 1 through 16, determining who's going to be better in 2025, the Big Ten or the SEC, is Ohio State versus Georgia. Ohio State is plus 210 on FanDuel to win the Big Ten. They are the favorite. Georgia is not the favorite to win the SEC. They are plus 350. Texas is plus 300. But the reason I did this is because these, I think, are the two standard bearers as recent national champions for these two conferences. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
So best programs, most reliable in this era, the teams that you would bank on to be here, not just this season, but for the next 5-10 years. That's Ohio State in the Big Ten and Georgia in the SEC. Who are you taking?
Ohio State.
Why?
Seems like Georgia's having a bit of a struggle right now, like navigating NIL. I mean, Kirby Smart's out here pining for the good old days when you could just pay guys under the table and not have to be competitive with other programs who are going after the same players. It's not like, it's funny to joke about. I don't think like Georgia's in danger of falling off necessarily, but I think I don't know. It feels like Ohio State might have a better handle on how to navigate all of this. And Ryan Day's got now he has the national title. So who knows what that could mean for him as a coach as Ohio State moves forward. So Georgia's not going anywhere necessarily, but I do feel like Ohio State may still be ascending. As difficult as that may be for a program that was already operating at a pretty high level.
It feels like Georgia is where Ohio State was maybe 18 months ago, which is not only things on the field not quite happening at the level that they want it to, happening at a very high level, but not quite where they want to be, but also questioning how to navigate it. And I think you're right that it feels like Ohio State kind of knows their deal now. Not saying it's the definitive way to do this, but I think they are very comfortable with their recruiting, with their retention, with their transfer plans, with their NIL, even losing 2 coordinators. I just think they kind of know how they want to go about it. And Georgia, to their credit, it's one of those things. I don't like when people talk about flip-floppers because I think changing your mind based on evidence is a good thing in life. I think that's good, right? You get evidence and you say, okay, we're going to adjust. But it feels like Georgia is in more of a transition phase right now than Ohio State is. And if Georgia was standing pat, I would maybe be even more critical of that. So I don't doubt that they are going to figure it out and probably be even more competitive than a recent 2-time national champion. But right now, today, I just think Ohio State has a better handle on it.
Yeah, Georgia was to give them their flowers or whatever, the last dynasty of the way that college football used to be. But it just has to, it feels like it has to reconfigure things a little bit. It's not, Georgia's, I think, will make the playoff. Georgia will be in the national title conversation. I'm sure they will win another national title in my lifetime. But I just think Ohio State kind of maybe didn't weather the initial change great, but now that it's on the other side of it, just seems like it's a slightly better position.
Yeah. Okay. So we're taking Ohio State in this matchup at the top of the conferences. Number 2, Penn State versus Texas. This is Penn State, the number 2 favorite in the Big Ten at plus 240. Texas is actually the favorite in the SEC at plus 300. I think I wanted to match these 2 teams up, though. And I think this is fair. I'm not trying to manipulate things. I just think this is it's not just the odds. It's who you are as a program. These are 2 semifinal teams from last year who fell just a little bit short, but absolutely are national title contenders, have great histories, but in the modern era have not quite been what they were at their peak in previous eras. So I think Penn State, Texas is a good matchup. Who would you rather be in 2025?
In 2025, I think I'd rather be Penn State. There's a more interesting longer term conversation there, I think, but in that 2025 window, I think Penn State is a little more loaded up than Texas is.
I agree with that. And again, this is specifically, we're having a who's going to be better in 2025 conversation with this part of the show. I don't think Texas is going away, but I also don't think Penn State is going away. And if we do want to go into recent history at all, Penn State's recent history is much better than Texas is. And so I don't know. Is there any reason to believe that Texas has a better chance to get over the top than Penn State has? I mean, that's just a James Franklin conversation, which we already had on this show a couple months ago, as deep as anybody's going to go on James Franklin and what he means to this college football season.
I think it's an Arch Manning, Drew Aller conversation too.
I think that is, but Texas kind of lost a lot and Penn State kept a lot, and I'd rather be Penn State this year.
Yeah, that's kind of as simple as it is for me. If you want to, I know that people have their opinions on James Franklin and he's earned the reputation, I suppose, but I just look at the 2 rosters and I think Penn State's is better right now.
Okay. Number 3, this is based on the odds, and this is a clear top 3 for both conferences. This is Oregon at plus 280 to win the Big Ten versus Alabama at plus 500 to win the SEC. Can you make a Bama case? Can anybody make a Bama case?
I think we've questioned Oregon a little bit, right? So I think based off Question meaning like maybe they'll go 10-2 in the regular season and not go undefeated. So I think maybe you could make an Alabama case. I don't know that I would in these two teams. I think I'd still go Oregon, but like I said, I think Alabama might have enough Saban remnants to like make noise one last time this year, and then it really unravels potentially.
If we were going next 5 years, not just this year, who would you take?
Oregon, no doubt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you and I,
unless Alabama takes Dan Lanning.
I know. Yeah. I mean, that's the conversation about this, which again, this is where we are. Well, if Alabama can steal Oregon's coach, they'll be just fine. But for now, everybody would take Oregon for the next 5 years. I think it's possible that you and I have more questions about Oregon in 2025 than most people do. I don't think that means that we're wrong, but I don't want our curiosity about Oregon's ability to run it back, I don't want that to ding the Ducks too much. Because
Sure.
I think most people here, who you taking in 2025, I think most people take Oregon.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So we're taking Oregon. So that's 3-0 Big Ten. Next is Michigan versus LSU. This is a bit of a drop off from those top three in each conference. LSU is plus 950 to win the SEC. Michigan is plus 900 to win the Big Ten. This is again like an interesting tier. This is pretty clearly, I think, the fourth teams and programs in these conferences right now, because they do have recent history of success in their modern era. Mm-hmm. They do have good players right now, but they also have questions right now. Who would you rather be in 2025, LSU or Michigan?
I think I might lean LSU a little bit here, just because like how much Michigan's roster is changing, and you're I think Bryce Underwood will be good. There's a risk in playing a freshman, so I think I might lean LSU like slightly just for this year.
But it is fascinating to lean LSU while also acknowledging that Michigan, thanks to its NIL, swiped LSU's quarterback, who was a backyard Michigan guy in Detroit.
Yeah.
So this is also a reason to have these two teams go head to head. We can have you can still have future conversations about Michigan right now, but you can't really until we kind of know what the deal's going to be.
Correct.
When there's an NCAA ruling, and to think about, well, I'd rather be in 2028. Would you rather be Michigan or LSU? It's like, well, let's see. But I do think, even discarding that for the moment, new offensive coordinator for Sharon Moore, first-time head coach, can he do this versus Brian Kelly? Has done it before, but can he do it in Baton Rouge? Is an interesting conversation. And I'm not going Brian Kelly for sure in that conversation at all. Like, the experience matters. We have to acknowledge that. But I think Michigan, if they get clear of this, has a chance to continue to be really good. But LSU for this year, I think, is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Illinois versus Ole Miss. Now, we'll have a conversation about this later. There's quite a drop-off here. Ole Miss is 10-1 to win the SEC, which is the fifth best odds. Illinois is 35-1 to win the Big Ten, which is tied for the fifth best odds. Who would you rather be, Illinois or Ole Miss?
Illinois. Illinois is another team that is I wouldn't say loaded up to like make a run at the national championship, but loaded up to have the best season Illinois had in quite some time, maybe ever.
And I feel like Ole Miss was loaded up last year and didn't quite get there.
Yes.
So for this season, I'd rather be Illinois, and nobody who watches or listens to this show on a regular basis would be surprised by this conclusion, because we've been talking about Illinois for months, but we've also said we can feel people coming around on this a little bit, that we're not the only people who are in on Illinois. Our boy Ari has Illinois in his first playoff projections.
Yes. The thing with, I do get a little nervous about that, though, because Illinois is not going to surprise anybody, right? Like, they are not this year's Indiana, because nobody saw Indiana coming, if people are anticipating Illinois making the jump. So I don't know. I just wonder what that means as Illinois tries to navigate its season. Like, people know they're good and have a lot of returning talent and production. So might they get some better swings and better challenges from their opponents than Indiana got last year?
Okay. Next one, this worked out. Again, there was a four-way tie at 35-1 for the odds to win the Big Ten. So I just moved them around a little bit to make the most interesting and reasonable and fair matchups. I thought Indiana-Tennessee is a great matchup. It's two playoff teams from last year. Indiana's 35-1 to win the Big Ten. Tennessee has the sixth best odds, tied for the sixth best odds to win the SEC at 13-1. Would you rather be Tennessee or Indiana?
I would rather be Indiana.
Because Tennessee is falling apart and Indiana is not.
Yeah, I do wonder, I hate silver linings, but is it possible that Tennessee is better off without Nico? And I guess Joey Aguilar is going to be their quarterback, right? I don't think Tennessee is going to become something like a bad team. But I think Indiana has more going for it. Yeah.
But also, again, if there were people who looked at this and were like, Tennessee, I don't think there's any reason to believe that Tennessee is going to continue as a playoff level team any more than you believe Indiana.
Yeah.
And I know Peyton Manning, and I know Johnny Majors, and I know Phil Fulmer, and I know T. Martin, and I know all that. But right now, I think there's more of a foundation and a structure with Curt Cignetti in Indiana. And I don't think Josh Heupel's bad, but I just think probably with one playoff appearance, Tennessee has immediately become overrated as a modern day program. And Indiana, with one playoff appearance, my idea is that nationally they're more like, they're one and done. Yeah. But Tennessee's here to stay. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. But I think maybe other people in this matchup would pick Tennessee, but not Northern glasses, just like realistic views of the roster and the programs and the coaching staffs. I think Indiana is the definitive correct answer.
I think that's right. Yeah. I actually think Josh Heupel's done a very good job at Tennessee. As a guy who at the time he was hired, people just assumed he was hired because it was the most obvious decision for them to make at a time where they couldn't really get the coach they wanted. And he's done a great job, I think, despite those odds kind of being stacked against him. But yeah. I am sort of wrapping my arms around the idea of Indiana sustainability in a way that maybe I shouldn't, but I will and pick Indiana here.
Next one I think is another interesting conversation. It's Nebraska at 35-1, again in this tie for Big Ten odds versus Texas A&M at 13-1. This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th team in each conference. Would you rather be Texas A&M or Nebraska?
Pass. No, I these very similar situations. I think very similar fan bases, very similar outsized opinions of themselves. I think in the moment, probably Nebraska.
It's really close, but we already did our Nebraska breakdown. We don't think Nebraska's in a bad spot. We think they're in a curious spot.
Yeah.
Added some skill guys, added some offensive line guys, maybe some questions on the defensive line, like the secondary. Not sure about the defensive coordinator promotion, but I don't know. Are you so enamored with Marcel Reed as a quarterback and Mike Elko as a head coach? It's like, boom, got to beat A&M.
No, I don't think so. I don't know how you could be.
Matt Rule has a longer resume than Mike Elko. Mike Elko has been a good coach. Matt Rule won at Temple and Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
And Nebraska's trying in the portal. I think Nebraska by a little bit here.
Yeah, I think I'm a very slight lean to Nebraska, but I'll give it to them. Yeah.
All right. Next is USC and Florida. This is the last team that was tied at 35-1 for the Big Ten odds. For USC, Florida is 18-1. Who would you rather be?
Florida. Quarterback is a heavy Florida lean. And I think like the Gators have a decent amount back on both lines of scrimmage. I think like Florida for me is a team that has a realistic shot at making the playoff this year, and USC does not. So I'm going Florida.
We don't talk about USC a lot. If any of this recruiting stuff is real, if this is a reset by Lincoln Riley and not a futile last gasp, we have to remember, and this is an interesting comparison because, again, at their peaks, these should be two of the best 10 teams in college football. Is there any doubt about that? But that's in both programs?
Yeah, I want to see all these team like matchups actually happen on the field.
Yeah, I know.
They're all super interesting.
So again, this is all one of these again that if we're talking about a Big Ten SEC scheduling showdown, that they do this as part of it, and maybe you have to guarantee each of them 4 playoff spots to make it happen. The 4 playoff spots that they're almost certainly going to get anyway in a 14 or 16 team playoff, but you get this. Are you still super offended by the guaranteed playoff spots? If we get this, do you want to see USC and Florida? Do you want to see Nebraska and Texas A&M? Do you want to see Illinois and Ole Miss? I do. And that's not even talk about Oregon, Alabama, Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State, Georgia. This would blow the roof off the sport.
I'm ready for it. Sign me up.
And they're saying, just guarantee us the spots that we're 92% going to get anyway. And everybody's like, oh, how dare you? How dare you? It's like, how dare us? Can we just live in the world and then make awesome football games? It's 2 things. It's the only 2 things we want to do here. We want to live in the world, accept reality, and then we want to make awesome football games. We'll go Florida. Iowa, South Carolina. Iowa 45-1, South Carolina 20-1. Who would you rather be?
Probably South Carolina. I think it's close, especially if you can, I think, get rather excited about Mark Gronowski at Iowa pretty quickly, and what that could mean for Iowa. But Iowa's also replacing a lot on defense too. Like I don't want to be dismissive of that. Probably not talked about enough, to be honest. And I think you made the point before, like South Carolina has 2 of the most exciting players in college football back on either side of the ball, but not a whole lot besides those 2 to get excited about. But I'll ride with Lenora Sellers and Dylan Stewart, I think, slightly.
Yeah, I agree. We'll take South Carolina, but one of the reminders here is that when you are getting excited about South Carolina and assuming they're a playoff team, they're the Iowa of the SEC. So are you thinking that way about Iowa?
Yeah.
They're the Iowa of the SEC. Just keep that in mind. Washington, Auburn. Washington is 65-1 to win the Big Ten. Auburn is 26-1 to win the SEC. Who you taking?
I'm taking Washington. I'm drinking more and more of the Washington Kool-Aid every day.
Drink it.
Yeah.
You're rather than sucking on the Auburn Freezy Pop, right? I actually have a Freezy Pop thing for what you eat. The Freeze Pop. No, I don't want. Let it melt and drink that Washington Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
We don't need to have a long conversation about Auburn because I would rather throw my sword out the window than do that. We're taking Washington. Minnesota versus Oklahoma. Minnesota at 120-1 to win the Big Ten. Oklahoma at 33-1 to win the SEC, only because they imported Washington State's offensive coordinator and quarterback, because that's just how it works now. When teams in the South don't know what to do, they import the Washington State quarterback, and then everybody assumes they're going to win the national championship. Who are you taking?
Oklahoma, I think, but I don't love Oklahoma. I'll take John Mateer. I'll take John Mateer over Drake Lindsay for 1 year.
If you had to bet who's going to win more games in 2025, bet your house who's going to win more games without digging into either schedule. And that's not the only thing we're discussing here. Who would you take? If you had to bet.
Oklahoma. Wow. Just looking at win totals.
I just think they
have the same win total.
Which is what, like 6.5?
6.5.
Yeah. I think there's a bottom that is possible, right? It's possible that the floor falls out at Oklahoma and Brent Venables gets fired in the middle of the year. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Is that possible at Minnesota?
No.
I don't think Minnesota stare down the barrel of maybe going 3-9. I think there's a ceiling, obviously, tradition, talent-based recruiting, money. They brought in a veteran quarterback. There's a ceiling at Oklahoma that maybe Minnesota doesn't have this year in a season when they're going to play a young first-year starter at quarterback. But again, this is part of the thing here. We are now in the world where Oklahoma is the Minnesota of the SEC. Let's just make sure we keep that in mind. Even if we take Oklahoma here, just please remember what we're talking about.
Yeah,
but we can
didn't we
take
have a
Oklahoma.
Didn't we have a conversation about the possibility of Brent Venables not making it past Red River? Oklahoma plays Michigan, Auburn, and Texas. Like they can lose all 3 of those games, and then if they lose all 3 of those games, he's not their head coach.
Yeah. So just be aware. Okay, but we'll take Oklahoma. Michigan State versus Missouri. Michigan State at 120-1 to win the Big Ten. Missouri at 40-1 to win the SEC. Remember when like people would put Missouri in the playoff last year in the preseason?
Mm-hmm.
I may have been one of those people. Do they still have a football team? Their quarterback's Penn State's backup. I don't know what happened. They had the best receiver in the country, went in the second round. It didn't matter. Like, what happened to Missouri? What is Missouri? I know nothing about Missouri, and I feel like that's okay. And a year ago, I felt like everybody was supposed to know something about Missouri, and then they just kind of fizzed out.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Yeah, I didn't care enough to probe into what happened there. I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, but I was. Yeah, they were a trendy playoff pick. I was probably on that boat for a time. Last off season. I don't know what happened to them that kept that from happening. I guess I will say, like, I have no idea like which direction Michigan State's heading in. I feel like I have a fairly good handle on what Missouri's like floor is with Eli Drinkwitz, which is like probably a team that at least makes a bowl game. And I don't know that that's the case with Michigan State right now. So like, even for all of the what is Missouri, I think I'd lean Missouri here.
It's only year 2 for Jonathan Smith. We're intrigued and excited about Jed Fish in Washington year 2, but we're not the same level of excitement about Jonathan Smith and Aiden Childs at Michigan State in year 2. And are we doing to Aiden Childs what we did to Dylan, what we're maybe doing to Dylan Raiola, which is like, we'd rather be excited about guys we've never seen, as opposed to Aiden Childs played a whole year as a starting quarterback last year, had good moments and bad, and now we're like, I don't know.
Probably, but I just never felt like Aiden Childs was on an upward trajectory. Now, like he has a ton of talent, so if it hits, it's going to be awesome. And he has Nick Marsh to throw to. They have good receivers, but I don't. Michigan State feels like a really long play under Jonathan Smith, because I don't think they're going to like aggressively flip the roster. I don't think that's what Jonathan Smith is about. I don't think they're going to be like out on the cutting edge of like recruiting. They're going to recruit guys that they want and develop them and try to build it the same way they built Oregon State. And it's going to take a while. And we'll see whether or not Michigan State actually has the patience to let that play out. So that's why I'm a little uncertain about what they're going to be.
But if you do that at Michigan State the right way, you could win 10 games, because Mark D'Antonio did it for much of a decade doing it that way. So, and as John pointed out, Michigan State in that era hit kind of a window where maybe Michigan was down a little bit. Penn State maybe wasn't quite this. Illinois wasn't quite this. Like, someone's got to be good and somebody's got to be down. Michigan State did a good job in that window. I'll agree with taking Missouri here, but that might be wrong. I think Missouri is the right call now. But I'm curious. I'm not out on Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, but I understand why we're not super fired up about it this year. And we have a Michigan State breakdown coming. Okay. We'll take Mizzou. Next is UCLA versus Arkansas. We can spend 9 seconds on this. UCLA at 180-1. Arkansas at 130-1. This is quite a drop off. Missouri is 40-1 to win the SEC, and then there's a huge drop off to these last 4 teams in the SEC. Would you rather be UCLA or Arkansas?
I would rather be UCLA, because Arkansas might also fire its coach this year.
Plus,
also, this is the Madden Iamaleava Bowl.
Oh my God!
One of these teams might owe the other money.
Again, can you imagine
a quarterback who's never going to play for either?
I didn't even do that on purpose. I didn't even do that on purpose. But we just got 20 million people to watch UCLA Arkansas in our Big Ten SEC showdown. If you actually made this reality in 2025, right?
Yeah.
My God, I'm going to go work for a TV network, or just bring us in as consultants. We want all this. We want all the smoke. We want every one of these games on the schedule in 2025. Yes?
Yes.
We're taking
Including
UCLA.
The next one.
Wisconsin, Vanderbilt. Wisconsin is 210-1 to win the Big Ten. Vanderbilt is 300-1 to win the SEC. Who would you rather be?
Am I nuts for saying Vanderbilt?
You're
I'm out on the
immersed.
local experience.
You're immersed in Diego Pavia. I get it. You're out. Adam Rittenberg, we did not get to Wisconsin when Adam was on. It was on my list, and we just ran out of time. I think he's very curious about what's going to happen at Wisconsin, too.
I'm not out on Luke Fickell generally. I am out on this specific marriage.
This match.
Yeah.
And so this is an anti-Wisconsin vote rather than a pro-Vanderbilt vote, because I know they beat Alabama last year, but also Alabama could be Vanderbilt could be staring down the barrel of 3-9 very easily.
So was Wisconsin.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
We're in a world where Wisconsin's win total is 1 win higher than Vanderbilt's. How did we get here?
Okay, we'll take Vanderbilt, and we'll talk about Wisconsin on a future KOTN showdown. Rutgers, Kentucky. Rutgers 210-1 to win the Big Ten. Kentucky 300-1 to win the SEC. Who would you rather be?
Rutgers.
I would rather be Rutgers too. Even though Rutgers losing quarterback last year transferred to Kentucky, Rutgers knows who they are. They have a foundation. Kentucky might have a higher peak. And again, like this is one of those, who did Kentucky beat last year? Ole Miss. And we were supposed to think that Kentucky was the greatest team in the world. And then Kentucky didn't win a game the rest of the year because that's just how it works down there. Rutgers is a solid football program. Rutgers is a solid 7-win football program. Yes. Doesn't mean they'll win 7 every year, but they're more solid than Kentucky.
Yes. And I think the Mark Stoops era at Kentucky is defined by being a solid 7-win program. But I also get the sense that people are going a little tired of that too.
Okay. Last one is Maryland at 400-1 to win the Big Ten. Mississippi State at 500-1 to win the SEC. Again, the Big Ten has 2 more teams. Northwestern and Purdue were the bottom 2 teams in the Big Ten, so we lopped them off. Would you rather be Maryland or Mississippi State?
I know nothing about Mississippi State, and I won't pretend to, so I'll pick Maryland.
I think Maryland has a richer recent history. They had a bad year last year, a not unexpected down year. But I like the Justin Martin, Malik Washington quarterback plan. They have a little recruiting juice. They usually have some pretty good receivers. Their defense is often better than you think. I don't think it's unreasonable to take Maryland here based on the recent past, even if you think they might be teetering a little bit this year. So in our showdowns, we now are officially 10-6 for the Big Ten. And we took the top 7 showdowns. We took 6 of 7 for the Big Ten. So that is the Big Ten being better at the top and also being better with depth because they won 10-6. So both in elite teams and in depth, the Big Ten definitively will be better than the SEC in 2025. Thank you for joining Kings of the North.
I'm shocked we reached that conclusion.
Bench press a sword. My God, it feels good. Can you just feel the Northern strength growing in you instead of oozing nuss? I was asking Adam Rittenberg if he was oozing nuss No, Connor O'Gara, you using nuss talking about the LSU? God, I got nuss coming out everywhere. Oh, look at this. This sword weighs 130 pounds, and I'm benching it like it's nothing. Look at that. Okay. That's how good we feel. 10-6. Is this unreasonable, Landis? 10-6, so. Big Ten over the SEC, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's unreasonable.
Okay. This is the last thing I want to talk about before we get to Whatcha. There are 21 teams in the FanDuel odds that are 100-1 or better, or less, right, to win the national championship. The odds I was citing previously were the odds to win conference titles. Of the teams that are 100-1 or better, 21 of them, 12 are in the SEC, 4 are in the ACC, 4 are in the Big Ten, and then there's Notre Dame. I think, again, this is just sending a warning shot to the rest of college football. My view of this is don't view a lack of elite teams in the SEC and uncertainty as strength. Because there's a lot of 25-1, 37-1 to win the national championship for a bunch of absolutely mid SEC teams that doesn't exist for the Big Ten. Because I think when people look at the Big Ten, they're like, well, I don't know. Is anybody going to really beat Ohio State, Oregon, or Penn State, and then maybe Michigan? Those are the only 4 teams for the Big Ten that have odds of 100-1 or better to win the national championship. 3/4 of the SEC has this, and I find it odd.
I don't think it's a sign of strength. Yeah, I think it's more interesting to me, like that if you look at the teams that have the odds of 10-1 or better, that the Big Ten has the edge. The Big Ten has 3, the SEC has 2. That to me is like this is like the sign, maybe a sign of strength. Like the clarity in the Big Ten. Even if we're having a conversation about depth, it's like again, depth is important. The clear like cutoff from the top to then like the messy middle, I think is a sign of the strength for the Big Ten. Whereas like I don't like the idea that no one really at the moment knows who in the SEC is good beyond Georgia and Texas.
Yeah,
is not a sign of strength.
But I think if you're not careful, I think the clarity at the top of the Big Ten can actually hurt the perception of Illinois and Indiana and Iowa and the second tier Big Ten programs. As we're talking about, there are 9 teams in the nation who have odds of 20-1 or better to win the national championship. 4 in the SEC, 3 in the Big Ten, plus Notre Dame and Clemson. The group that's between 25-1 and 45-1 is 5-1 SEC to Big Ten. This is this messy middle you were talking about. Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Florida, and South Carolina are all between 25-1 and 45-1 to win the national title. The only Big Ten team in there is Michigan at 28-1. And then between 60-1 and 100-1, Oklahoma, Auburn, and Missouri are all in there. And Illinois is not in there. Illinois' odds are higher than 100-1. Indiana's odds are higher than 100-1. But I think definitively Illinois and Indiana and maybe Iowa and Nebraska, they're better programs. They're better teams than Texas A&M at 37-1. But I almost can hear the honks looking at something like this and taking the fact that there are more SEC teams that have good national championship odds as a sign of strength. And it is 100% the exact opposite.
Yeah, it's also a reflection, I guess, of like the betting market too, right? Not to go down that road, but like,
yeah,
you have to fudge the odds a little bit for the SEC teams because some of them are more established brands for whatever reason than some of the Northern teams and Big Ten teams we're talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I certainly don't view like an A&M and Indiana as widely separated as those odds would lead you to believe.
Right. Agree. So again, those teams at the top, Texas and Ohio State are 6-1, Georgia's 7-1, Oregon and Penn State are 8-1. So that's the 5 sort of obvious favorites to win the national championship, 3 from the Big Ten, 2 from the SEC. The final conclusion here for 2025, the Big Ten's elite teams are better, we expect, than the SEC's elite teams. Mm-hmm. And if you have the perception that the SEC has better depth, check yourself. Because we understand maybe why that perception exists, but it might be wrong. I don't think this is a losing depth battle for the Big Ten right now.
I don't. No, I think the Big Ten has some work to do. But
agreed.
But I think it can do it. So like, I'm not writing it off. Yeah.
Okay. We good? Anything else you want to throw in there?
I think we're good.
All right, we're going to go to Whatcha again. We expect on Monday to have a recorded show, not live at noon Eastern on YouTube, but something for you guys if you're out at a picnic and you want to do. My daughter has a thing where you get a speaker and then you can you play your cell phone sound through the speaker, right? You send it out to everybody at the picnic. Everybody's like, hey, do you want to put on some tunes? And it's like, actually, no, there's an Ask KOTN mailbag on Kings of the North. We're going to listen to that instead. So if anybody has a picnic on Monday and you would like to take a video of the entire picnic watching or listening to this show, we will run that video on this show. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want to force ourselves on your family and friends. It's like, oh yeah, I really want my video to be on this show. So you guys got to listen to this crap for 20 seconds. That's not what we're asking. If it happens organically, hey man, put on some KOTN, right? Great.
A very common phrase heard at barbecues and picnics across the North.
You got to hear what these guys said about Texas A&M versus Nebraska. They're breaking it down. Put on KOTN, baby. When we come back, what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking on Kings of the North. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis back on Kings of the North. You weren't here on Monday, Landis, but at the end of the show, the last break was like 90 seconds long, and it turns out that a transformer blew in my town and knocked out my wireless as the show was ending. But we actually have 2 wireless providers, so that there's sort of like a show wireless and a family wireless in our house. And all of a sudden it just vanished. And then I was like scrambling and trying to get on the other wireless, and I finally did, and that's why I was able to come back and end the show. But just so people, I was like, and how unprofessional. The whole town, like I was getting alerts until midnight that the wireless from that company was out for like 10 hours because something exploded. Just to be clear,
I can't believe somebody attacked the transformers in your town. To try to knock KOTN off course.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Was it Connor? It might have been Connor.
Not Connor Stallions, Connor O'Gara. Yeah, Connor Stallions actually, Connor Stallions has made statements on behalf of, he believes the same rise of the North is coming that we do. It might have been a Kirby operative. Oh man.
Yeah.
I gotta call the mayor. Oh, I didn't even think of that. The last thing I want is for our show to bring harm to my town. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. It's worth it. Okay.
That's right.
First, a comment about some of the things we talked about last week in Whatcha. This is from Tyler. As Andy Dufresne asked the warden, how can you be so obtuse? This is a Shawshank Redemption reference to start. You look through the world from the lens of a middle-aged man. And as soon as you are done with the fun of Uranus, you want it to be over for everyone? How selfish and close-minded. What about my 2-year-old child who will laugh and make jokes about Uranus for years to come? You want to deny him that? Why don't we get rid of shuttlecocks, dongles, cornhole, cum laude, and the number 69 while you're at it? Old curmudgeon Doug, captain of the fun police, why don't you take your bad idea and shove it up Uranus? It's a real human letter.
Incredible.
It's a real email. It did not get stopped by the email police on the way in. That's what we want. So thank you to Tyler for sending that in. Oh, I do like badminton. It's a good picnic game. I hope people are playing some badminton on Monday. Get the shuttlecocks out.
I don't like badminton, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like the way the shuttlecock flies around. It's like it can't gauge it.
Oh, all knuckleball. Yeah, when you're playing high school baseball, you're playing like beer league softball. You're sitting dead red. You're waiting fastball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want anything that moves.
No.
But if you try to groove like a 71 mile per hour fastball chest high, that thing's going 450, right?
That's exactly right. Yes.
And then I come in, I'm like a left-handed reliever who comes in with my shuttlecock knuckleball, and you just want to charge the mound.
I'm not swinging. I'm just hoping for a walk. Yeah. Bat stays on the shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah. I would hit you with like a 31 mile per hour knuckleball. And then you would fake charge the mound, and I would run into the outfield. This is Joel. After Doug said I would read a whole book about it, this is about the Uranus topic, how it got the name. The immediate question that popped in my mind was, would Doug read the book in the bathroom, or is that out of bounds? From frozen veggies to Uranus, you had me laughing on my morning hike. Thanks, guys. Blessings from Joel. Also, veggie talk. I took a job 2 years ago and couldn't move my family, so I commute and live alone during the week. This is when I talked about frozen vegetables last week, like I discovered them. The Green Giant and Bird's Eye microwave vegetables are a game changer. When I am with my family, we will grill or bake vegetables, but for one person, they are the only reason I eat vegetables during the week. That's Mike in Wheaton, Illinois, and Alpharetta, Georgia. So shout out to all the frozen vegetable eaters out there. And then we got some suggestions, and I'm certainly open to this. I actually would maybe like us to get to a point where we are including viewer and listener parts of Whatcha on a regular basis, that if you want to send in something to askkotn@gmail.com that you are watching or eating or thinking about, maybe we do an audience one every week as well. So Jock sent in a list of things if we're looking for shows to watch. Lioness on Paramount. Do you get Paramount Plus? You a Paramount Plus guy?
No, we don't. It's like the one we don't have. Yeah.
It's the one. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Apple, yes. Netflix, yes. HBO, yes. Peacock, yes, because you got to watch Notre Dame games. If Paramount Plus had Iowa State games on it, I would get it. But in the meantime, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I think I had it during the football season because I thought with the CBS Big Ten deal that I might need it for some reason, but then it turns out I didn't need it, so I got rid of it.
Okay. The Agency also on Paramount Plus. Your friends and neighbors watching. I am watching that. You watching that on Apple Plus? John Hamm.
No.
He's a thief. Yeah, handsome
like
thief.
Yeah.
And The Gorge movie on Apple TV. That I've read some stuff about. I unfortunately spoiled that for myself, so I'm not sure I can watch.
Oh, I want to watch that one. Yeah,
yeah.
I have not spoiled it, but
yeah,
that is one. Yeah,
Miles Teller. Teller. My only thing about Miles Teller is one time when I was covering Ohio State and the Major League Baseball All-Star game was in Cincinnati, Urban Meyer played in the celebrity softball game. So I went to that to cover that because I was like, well, I cover this football team and the coach that I cover is playing in a celebrity softball game. I guess I should be there. And I think he sat next to Miles Teller during the softball game. And I just had my binoculars on him because I'm like, well, I'm going to write 1,000 words on Urban Meyer at a celebrity softball game. He's going to get like one at bat. What else am I going to write about? And I think I could just tell that he was sitting next to Miles Teller and thinking the whole time, who is this freaking guy? And it was Miles Teller.
It was pre-Top Gun. Pre-Top Gun, Miles Teller.
Pre-Top Gun. Yeah. It's not his
Urban
fault.
Meyer's definitely seen Top Gun.
I also was thinking to myself, who is this freaking guy? Do you think Urban Meyer has seen Whiplash?
No, but I bet he's seen Top Gun multiple times.
But actually, Urban Meyer coaches like the drum instructor in Whiplash.
Yeah, that is true.
Drum until your hands bleed. Wow. I actually think Urban Meyer might have shown Whiplash to his football teams now that I think about it. If not, he should have. Drum until your hands bleed?
Yeah.
That's great. That's a total football coach thing to say. All right. What are you watching, Bill Landis?
I watched on the flight home yesterday, Wolves, speaking of Apple TV. Did you see that film?
It's been sitting in that queue for a year.
Yeah, Brad Pitt and Clooney. So like I love the Ocean's movies. Even the middle one that kind of stinks, I still love all three of them. And my favorite part of those movies is just like all the short, snippy conversations that George Clooney and Brad Pitt have with each other. And I just wanted this movie to be that. It wasn't quite that. It was fine. Like, it was good. It was a good airplane watch. Like it wasn't the best movie I've seen, nor was it the worst. It was a little, honestly, it was like a little hard to figure out at times. But it was mostly just an excuse to get those two guys together in a movie that wasn't a movie, which like maybe isn't like the most artistic thing anyone's ever done, but it was fine. I enjoyed it enough. Like it was a fun enough story, I think, it was kind of long. It was maybe longer than it needed to be, but it was good. I would say like if the only reason you're watching it was the reasons that I was watching it because you like seeing those two guys on screen together. They're certainly on screen together a lot, but you don't get the same kind of magic that you get out of the movies. Yeah.
Can you say what their jobs are in the movie without ruining the movie?
Yeah, they're fixers.
They're fixers.
Like what's his name in
like in Pulp Fiction?
The Wolf in Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
That's what the Wolf stands for? Harvey Keitel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you just like watching handsome, charismatic dudes chop it up?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I like Justified so much, because it's just Walton Goggins and Timothy Oliphant having interesting conversations.
Any other part of culture that springs to mind when you think of handsome, charismatic dudes chopping it up?
Maybe a college football show. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. But enough about Andy and Ari.
Send him that clip. So I'm really getting bad at trying to remember if I already talked about a thing or not. Have I talked about starting a podcast called Up Your Own Butt?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. I think I would like to start a side podcast called Up Your Own Butt that would talk about things in culture and pop culture that are up their own butt. And one of the ones, unfortunately for me, that has happened is this How I Met Your Mother podcast that I was super excited about. In my alternate life, I've already hosted a rewatch of How I Met Your Mother. But instead, one of the co-creators and the lead actor of the show have started a rewatch podcast of it. And I've listened to it, but it is so sort of inside. It's too inside. And sadly, so far, it is up its own butt. And this is something that I have talked about on this show before because I'm standing up for us because I don't want us to become obsolete. But nothing exists really until people absorb it. Whether that is the actions of an athlete, whether it is the acting of an actor or the singing of a singer or an author or a poet, or when you create something without an audience, it sort of doesn't exist. And so I can feel the culture. A lot of things have moved toward the creators commenting on themselves. And I realize I still like hearing from the people who absorb something, not from the people who create something, because creation is a solitary experience, but experiencing and absorbing is a group experience. And so it's what we do on the show. So I'm justifying our existence. But we take in college football the exact same way that all the people who watch and listen to the show do. So I understand wanting to watch a show or listen to a show that's current players, current coaches, former players. But I find myself still liking the outside view. And I kind of wish How I Met Your Mother is like one of my favorite shows. And I've been waiting for a rewatch podcast. And I'm finding that I wish it was outside people talking about what they thought of it, how they enjoyed it, the things they wondered about, nitpicking it. I don't really need to hear constantly from the people on the inside. And that I find that's reflected in my sports content absorption as well. Like I do just sort of like listening and watching people who chop it up. And I'm not quite as interested as the people on the inside. I like getting their analysis on occasion, but those people as the primary conveyors, you created something and now you're also the people who are leading the conversation about it. That's not as interesting to me. And I don't know if that's a cop-out because I'm never going to be a person on the inside. I've made my whole life being a person on the outside. Let me rephrase that. It is a cop-out because I'm an outsider. But I also think it's a real cop-out. And we're not losing that, but I am intrigued always by the shift towards so much content created now by people on the inside.
Yeah, there's a lot of it now. And I think like when those shows are like exist and the people have like honest, interesting conversations, like I totally get it.
Yes.
Some of it's just like pure celebrity driven. It's like, okay, like we all know who you are, but you're not actually saying anything all that interesting. And that's where it can get a little off track, I think. I did maybe this is a different dynamic because the way I experienced this was like I watched the show Chernobyl on HBO and the podcast was available. So it was like the creators of the show had a podcast where they talked about like obviously the historical influences and how they chose to put it on screen and things they left off and like things that didn't make it into the show, which I thought was awesome. Like I thought it was a really nice piece of like additional content to go with the show that was excellent. But it was also, they were also happening simultaneously. So like if there was maybe a How I Met Your Mother podcast that was happening, whatever, 10 years ago while the show was happening, maybe you'd view it differently. But like the retrospective from people who were on the inside, like doing their own like myth making, I guess, about the show. And like, I can see how that could get like, up its own butt, the way you put it.
John is asking, for instance, asking in the chat correctly. Yes, you and I should not be the hosts of the show that is a KOTN rewatch show. You and I in 10 years should not go back and rewatch this show and be like, hey, so what'd you think of that first show? Somebody else. God forbid. What's your show? I watch these two goofballs chop it up and then I just rip them for half an hour. Actually, I would watch that show. If somebody did a show ripping us based on every show that we do, I would consume that show. I'm sure it would be very enjoyable. Anyway, What are you eating? Did you eat any good stuff on your trip?
Yeah, actually it was the food was like fine. We were in the US Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, which I had never been there before. It's beautiful. I very much would like to go back there. But one of the days we were there, one of the first days, my wife and I went on a snorkeling trip. And like part of the sell for the snorkeling trip is like you went snorkeling, obviously, but then it was like a sunset cruise, sort of like on the way back. And there was a bar on the boat, and they said they were going to have pizza, and I just thought like, oh, they'll pick up some pies before we leave the dock, and they'll just like keep them in like the old pizza delivery guy bag, and they'll keep them warm for a while, and then we'll eat them in a couple of hours when we're done snorkeling. That's not what happened. We went to the second snorkeling spot, and like I was in there like down like looking at fish, and then I poke my head up, and then I just see a dinghy leave a sailboat, come across the little bay that we were in, and bring pizzas to our boat that we were on. And it turns out, I have a picture I asked Mike to put up here. There's a sailboat called the Pizza Pie in it's docked off of Greater St. James Island in the Virgin Islands. And it's just a sailboat with 3 pizza ovens on it, and all they do is just cook up pizzas all day, and then they deliver the pizzas by dinghy. You could also take your own boat to it, and they'll give it to you, or you can swim up to it. I think other times we were there, I guess like it wasn't like peak season, but I think other times they have like little rafts set up around the boat where you can like chill out with your feet in the water and eat your pizza. But anyway, it's an incredible business idea. I'm so mad I didn't think of it. The pizza was actually pretty good. I probably should have taken a picture of the pizza, but I didn't want people on our boat, snorkeling boat, to think I was a weirdo. It's like, why are you doing that? And I say, it's for the podcast. Don't worry about it.
It's content. Yeah.
It's content. Yeah. So we just took a picture of the boat as we passed it. But yeah, incredible. There's also a taco boat, which we didn't see, but there's one of those down there too. But yeah, meeting people where they are with pizza and tacos on the water. In the U.S. Virgin Islands is just an amazing concept that I wish I owned that business.
I think people have an understanding of this. I live in constant fear of losing you, and now I'm adding to the list losing Bill to opening a cheesesteak boat in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, I think
I'm on alert.
It's on my mind. I think cheesesteaks could be tough though, because you don't want you get a lot of spillage off of a cheesesteak, and you don't want that to fall into the water. I guess it's bad, but different. I thought maybe I could be a guy who like slings breakfast sandwiches on the water.
Oh yeah. Okay. Don't think about that anymore, please. Yeah. It's a terrible idea. You would hate it. Keep being a handsome, charismatic college football host. So I am here to talk about the thing that I'm drinking, which is grape Gatorade Zero. Are you a big Gatorade guy?
Yeah, I drink a decent amount of it. I like the what is cucumber lime, I think, is a flavor that I like.
Oh my.
Yeah.
I have not traditionally been a huge Gatorade guy, but I just want to say this flavor in particular to me tastes exactly like a melted Freezy Pop. Mm-hmm. And that flavor, because if you are of a certain generation, we are getting into Freezy Pop season, which is just right. Has everybody had a Freezy Pop? Do I have to mansplain Freezy Pop existence to this
I don't
audience?
think so.
Are they good? Okay.
I'm interested in the pronunciation. Is it Freezy or is it just freeze?
Oh, it's Freezy Pop to me. I don't know. Okay. I also call them fudgicles instead of fudgesicles. So that might be wrong.
No, there's definitely a brand that is fudgicles.
Oh, for real? Oh, I feel better about that now. God, fudgicles are good too. Maybe I'm changing. I'm changing. Mine's fudgicles are good. No, so this tastes like a melted Freezy Pop. Just like exactly like that. Like I think that's how they make it. They get Freezy Pops, they make them, then they freeze them, then they melt them, then they pour them into this Gatorade thing. And it got me thinking, you are a parent of a young child. Freezy Pop still a thing? Like we're getting a Freezy Pop season? Is that exciting? Like still maybe at the end of preschool, the end of school, like your teacher brought in Freezy Pop for field day. And it's like, my God, getting a Freezy Pop at field day at the end of the school year, it made 200 days of school worth it because you got to eat a Freezy Pop for 10 minutes. Still there, still hitting.
I like it too, because I can give him all the flavors I don't like because he doesn't know any better. So I get all the red, I get all the reds and the blues and the purples, and he can have the green.
Oh, yeah.
Orange. Yeah.
Okay. Now we can have a fight about that. Lime Freezy Pop? Are you kidding me? I'm green all day. I'm greening it up like I'm gonna hang out with your kid and eat the greens. So, and then I also wonder, whenever I have grape flavoring, was the wine industry just prepping us? Like every time you eat a grape flavored thing as a child, is it just prepping you for wine consumption? Because I enjoy this so much, but I am not a wine drinker. So also, am I missing out on wine if I think that grape Gatorade Zero slaps? Am I missing out on wine?
I can't say I've ever had a glass of wine. I thought to myself, this tastes like Gatorade and or a melted freeze pop. So I don't know.
Okay, then I'm good.
I don't think the flavor profiles are quite the same.
It's all grapes. I don't know. Grapes, grape. Grape Bubblicious, wine. What's the difference? It's the same thing. I'm down with Grape Bubblicious, but I will say Grape Bubblicious gives me a headache. So I probably can't handle wine. That's my body telling me don't edge towards wine. All right.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about?
So we traveled. We went on vacation with our 2-year-old who had to have his own airplane seat for the first time, and didn't always go well. He screamed a lot. He screamed a lot on almost all of the flights. But people were really nice about it. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm sure not everybody enjoyed it. Like, I totally get that not being a pleasant experience. But there were a handful of people ended up on 4 planes. And it was I did not sit with my wife and my child. So like I made out great. I didn't have to do anything. But there were a lot of people who were like incredibly helpful, like trying to calm him down and settle him down. Like not just the flight crew, but like people on the plane, like moms on the plane who were like, "Don't worry, this happens. You got it." Like saying very nice things to my wife about how she was handling it. And it was just nice to see like the kindness of strangers on display when it would be very easy for them to not be that way with a screaming 2-year-old who was, maxing out his lung capacity and also maybe at times kicking your chair because he didn't want to be where he was at that moment. So, thank you to none of you who watch this show, but to anyone out there who like dares to be nice to someone who's like, just trying to deal with a thing that's a little unpleasant in the moment. It was nice to see that.
I think there are a lot of people, maybe when you're younger and you're flying on a plane, who go through the, oh my God, this screaming baby.
Sure.
And then you get older, perhaps you have kids, and you're like, this is just life. This happens literally to everyone. So that is quite a transformation. And maybe not everybody goes through that transformation, and people are at different phases in their lives. But when you go from, I can't believe this screaming baby, to it happens to everybody, maybe I can help. It's quite a thing.
Yeah. I was always like very cognizant of that in my mind. Like, certainly never said anything out loud to anybody about it. But there have definitely been times where I've thought like, boy, I hope that kid doesn't scream the whole flight. But I also didn't want to invite any bad karma my way either by like ever voicing that out loud to anybody.
Right.
I wouldn't dare do that, and nobody did it like to us either, which was nice. But yeah, he was pretty loud. He was. I'm hoping future flights are better with him. I think he's right in the sweet spot where he hates it, but I think we'll get on the other side of it quickly.
Yeah. No, it happens to everybody. It's also one of those, are you just supposed to lock you and your kid in your house until they're 10?
Right.
It's like, how dare you try to go anywhere else in the world, selfish jerks. It's like, I'm just trying to have my kid experience life. All right. I'm thinking about the Gregorian calendar because I maybe would like to change this part of the show to what's blowing your mind, because I feel like we've hit on that. One of them, as it turned out, when I blew your mind, was an outright lie. So I apologize for that. But this, I think, is real. I wound up going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. It started with something that showed up on social media for me. And so I started looking up calendars, and all of a sudden, I think I'm going to tell you something that I certainly did not know, and it blew my mind. I'll be curious if you know it, and I'll be curious if the audience knows it. Okay. Our calendar started like with the Roman calendar back in like 750 BC. And this is like when they named the months and stuff, but it started out there are only 10 months. And in the winter, they didn't have months. They were just like, it's winter. Just survive it. Just get through. And then when spring starts again, then we'll have an actual month and date. Did you know that? That for a while, they just like, winter was just like this big blah that didn't even deserve a name.
I don't think I knew that, but is it November and December didn't exist?
No, it's that. So this is part of it, because the thing that I saw on social media was like, why is it that September, October, November, December, which is like 7, 8, 9, 10, are not those months? And it's that they were originally, there were only 10 months, and they were the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th months. And then when they shifted to the Julian calendar with Julius Caesar in like 46 BC, they took that amorphous block of winter and they gave it 2 months. And they called that January and February and put that at the beginning of the calendar, and it bumped back the previously existing 10 months. So it's
sense.
like, why is December the 12th month instead of the 10th month? And it's like, well, it was the 10th month. But when they expanded the calendar because they decided, I don't know, winter deserves months too, they put them at the beginning. So that's why that happened. So then we went with the Julian calendar, Julius Caesar, for a long time. And they also introduced the leap year, leap year every 4th year, right? And so they were just like, hey, a year is like 365.25 days. We're going to have a leap year every 4 years and we're good. But then we adopted the Gregorian calendar in 1582. This was adopted by Pope Gregory the 13th. Any of this hitting for you?
I don't know the history of why the calendar is the way it is. So
okay. Yeah. So the only change really from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar is that every 100 years, sometimes they took out a leap day. So this is an adjustment. So the average calendar year is now 365.2425 days, which is more close to the actual lunar calendar of 365.2422 days. So the bottom line is this. If the round 100 year, 1800, 1900, 2000, 2100, right? If that year is divisible by 400, you do a leap day. So in 2000, we did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not divisible by 400, you skip the leap day in that 100 year. And so every 200 years on average, you skip a leap day, which is the only difference between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar. But the result is in 2100, there's not a leap day. And there wasn't one in 1900. And I have never heard that before.
I had no idea. What's sent you down this rabbit hole?
Someone saying, why are September, October, November, and December not the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th months?
Okay.
So I can't wait for when I'm 126 and there's no leap day in 2100. And people are going to be freaking out. But not this audience, because they'll be prepared for it.
Because they'll know.
Never heard it before.
Don't forget who told you.
But
where do you think you'll be when you're 126?
Hosting this show? What are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't know if
you're going to be.
Yeah, down in Disney World.
Oh, well, I'll probably go to Disney, then I'll get tired of that, and I'll come back and host this show. I'll probably go to Disney from like when I'm 80 to 100, and then from like 101 to 127, host this show, experience the non-leap day of 2100, and then it's lights out for me. It's a good plan, right?
if we could choose what we did in the afterlife, would you choose to be a part of the Haunted Mansion?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would be the podcast host ghost, which might be a thing I'll do anyway. So anyway, does that blow your mind? But then they decided, they were like, you know what, this Julian calendar with the leap year every 4 years, it's off a little bit. We've got to adjust that.
Decimal points, like
by decimals. Pope's like, we can't stand for this stuff, man. What are we doing? So they fixed it.
Seems like a great use of everyone's time.
But I'm just thinking about everybody in 1900 being like, what? What are we doing? There's what? There's no leap day? Are you serious? But in 2000, we escaped it. But in 2100, buckle up to have your mind blown. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for joining us on Kings of the North. Monday, recorded show, askkotn@gmail.com. Questions, comments, you might make it on the Monday show. Wednesday, we will be back as normal, including a KOTN showdown. Thanks to everybody who was in the YouTube chat. Lively group today. We appreciate you guys as always. If you're watching back on YouTube, if you're listening on a podcast, we couldn't do it without you. We're so grateful you're here. Tell a friend. Have a great time on Monday if you're spending it with family and friends, if you're honoring the heroes of our country. Awesome. Thanks, as always, to our producer, Mike Urostowski. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.